Roughly 600,000 people are released from U.S. prisons every year, and as the coronavirus pandemic expedites releases, California's prison population has dropped below 100,000 for the first time in 30 years. To explore the challenges of re-entering society, we're joined now by Yukari Kane, co-founder of the Prison Journalism Project, and Jesse Vasquez, program coordinator for Arsola Distribution and Community Services. Good to see both of you. Jesse, can you take us back through your first few days of getting released from San Quentin in 2019?
Sure. So when I was released, I had been incarcerated over 18 and a half years. I had gone in as a juvenile, so it was hard for me to come out as an adult into the world. I think some of the first challenges that I noticed in myself were the fact that I was afraid to interact with people. I waited in line when I didn't have to wait. You know, I had a hard time navigating supermarkets because of the structure in the canteen line in prison. Like I was just used to waiting to be called up, you know, to pick my stuff and everything, just pick it up instead of picking it out. And it was just like daunting just to see like all the selections of toothpaste. I was just used to having two options, right? The $5 one and the $2 one that I could afford. So some of those things were some of the things that overwhelmed me initially. I think within the first night, my brother kind of laughed at me because I had to sleep on the floor and alternate between the bed and the floor because the bed was too soft and the floor was too hard. But I had to find that middle ground, right? That sweet spot because the prison bunks were like, you know, 6-inch mattresses. And I had been so used to it, you know, that I needed that back support. So it was just one of those things. And then housing was tricky because even though I was in a private residence, I was used to the confines of the prison structure. So my hours, I would literally, you know, leave the house at 7 o'clock, you know, come back at 7, you know, and then not go out at night. Like the first week I didn't go out at night, even though I could go out. It wasn't until my brother was texting me one night and he said, "How's the weather out there tonight?" And I'm like, I'm inside. And he's like, "What are you doing inside, dude? Like you can go outside." But I hadn't been out of, you know, a prison cell after 8 o'clock, you know, or out of a prison building, you know, to enjoy the evenings. So I had gotten caught up in that structure.
It's like a whole new world when you come out and you get used to that routine of being inside. You actually touched on this a bit. You wrote a piece for the Prison Journalism Project about that experience at the DMV. Take us more through that and what you experienced in that arena.
I was going in there confident that I was going to get my license that same day. You know, I took my written test, you know, I went through the whole process. And then when it was time to like check my eyesight, I didn't know they had to do an eye exam, right, for you to get your license. And I'm standing there and I'm looking, I'm thinking I'm seeing the letters up there, right? And I read the first line, cool. And then she said, "Okay, jump down to the 5th line." And I thought it was the 5th line. And I read what I thought I saw, right? And I was going FP, you know, JP. And then I'm like, all right, cool. She's like, "Can you read that again for me?" And I didn't read the second time. I just repeated what I had told her the first time just to make sure that it was the same letters. And then she's like, "You know, I think you need to go get your eyes checked." I said, "No, I know what I read on that line." Mm-hmm. And then she's like, "No, you weren't even nowhere near the alphabet, you know, what you were saying, right?" And I was just like, "What? Are you serious?" She's like, "Look, a lot of people don't know that they need glasses until they come here." And it was just like, but I'm healthy, you know, I'm only 35 and 36 years old. Like my eyes aren't that bad. I can read, I can see pretty good. But it was a shocker for me, you know, to hear the doctor tell me that you can develop depth perception issues, you know, from being confined to close quarters for long periods of time. Like your eyes deteriorate, you know, the muscles aren't being used, you know, for long distance and stuff. So it wasn't like shocking, you know, but it was kind of discouraging, you know, to know that I was going to have to wear glasses. I call them driving glasses, but apparently I should use them all the time.
I'm the same way. I'd rather have the contacts in than the glasses. And formerly incarcerated people are 10 times more likely to become homeless than the general population. Yukari, you can chime in on this. How important is housing to the reentry conversation?
I think the 3 big barriers are housing, jobs, and then health health-related issues, according to what our writers tell us. And it's hard to get a job without stable housing. And so and then exacerbated with the little things in life, like the DMV experience that Jesse had, going into a supermarket with each little impediment, it just adds up.
There's nothing more important than stability. Stability in relationships, stability in housing, and the barriers to housing are huge for somebody who's formerly incarcerated. Like, the one thing is you don't have a rental history. That's number one. Like, I can't say I was in a prison cell for 20 years. I'm a good tenant. Like, I never damaged the property. Number two is you got no credit history or no limited credit history, right? And then you have the employment factor, where you can't show that you've been, sustainably employed for more than a year or a year and a half. So property owners, rental agents, they're really hesitant on that. And even though they have the ban the box thing in California, like, they still ask you when they run a background check, if you're going to rent a property. So transitional housing centers are kind of like the bridge there, but they don't serve anything after that. Once you exhaust your remedies, your free 6 months or your free year in transitional housing center paid for by the state of California, like, you're on your own after that.
Californians get about $200 in gate money after getting released from prison, around the same amount they received 50 years ago. How is that possible, the same amount so many years later?
Hasn't been an issue that has come up. I mean, it's not something that would be known unless you have experienced this yourself. And these are a part of our community that has heard the least. But, I was helping edit a story about this gate money, and we actually don't know how far back it has been $200. We got as far as 1970s. And back then it was worth a few $1,000s. So it really was meant to be money that was meant to help get them back on their feet. I mean, Jesse can probably tell us how he used his $200.
Yeah, fortunately for me, the $200 I was able to pocket because my brother drove up from Southern California to help me, buy the initial things that I needed, like my initial clothes, my hygiene and stuff like that. But that first day, I'm pretty sure we spent about $600 just in shoes, clothes, hygiene, things that I needed, for my daily, maintenance, right? And so that I could be able to have the things that I needed to look for a job, to get around town, my BART card, just to have enough funding, So I was fortunate for my brother and Ali Tambora to, give me some extra funding so I could have.
Part of the challenge too is that from prison to prison, the programs that they have to help you prepare for your reentry is so different. And so, our writers share all kinds of experiences that run the gamut. And some of them, especially as Jesse said, with the pandemic, some of them are getting released without any preparation. And that joy is quickly followed by fear, especially if they don't have family and friends to support them.
Yeah, and then add no money on top of that. That's a tough challenge. Why do you think there's not enough support for those leaving prison, and what can people do about it?
I think it's an awareness issue. That's something that we're trying to rectify at the Prison Journalism Project. I think it's we haven't focused enough on rehabilitation, and I know that our writers are hopeful that President Biden, who has made it part of his campaign promise to focus more on rehabilitation and remove some of the barriers to reentry, promising 100% housing, that he'll achieve some of those goals.
All right, Yukari Kane and Jesse Vasquez, thank you both. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.